The hell is this? He's trying out for Chevy.
Yep, that's Clint's new girlfriend, and at least she's an active gal. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name is Luke Kardasky here of thebestpoliticalshow.com, as we are going to be going live for the next 2 hours discussing all the latest and craziest news developing right now, as of course it looks like Russia has nuclear submarines outside of Florida. There's also massive de-dollarization news, specifically when it comes to Turkey shifting its alliances towards the east. There's a bunch of employees at CNN that soon might be fired, as it looks like there's also a financial meltdown happening in California, as Thomas Macy is exposing a major lobby in D.C., as Trump is promising some major tax cuts. We're going to be talking about that, plus a lot more, all here on this independent media broadcast. So if you could share this broadcast with your friends and family members, we would greatly appreciate it, as of course you guys do a major part to getting the word out there, making this show as prominent as it is, and the more prominent it becomes, the more guests we will have in studio that of course will be major game changers. This week we have some major big personalities coming in studio, as of course you guys also get to be a part of the conversation. One easy way to do that is to sign up on lukeunfiltered.com. When you do that, you get the ability to call into the show and ask us whatever you want in a totally unfiltered way. You could be today's caller just by signing up to lukeunfiltered.com, as you also get nature hikes. We're going to be doing one next week in New Hampshire, and free tickets to events like the Bitcoin conference, which we were just able to secure some free tickets to, that we will be giving out exclusively to members of lukeunfiltered.com. Another way to participate is to check out mysuperchat.com, as of course this is only a 3% service charge and allows your super chats to actually show up on screen. I prefer you guys use that over anything else, but we also will be reading Rumble rants and super chats as, of course, the show progresses and goes on, as we have a lot of different crazy subjects to discuss today. Joining us for this discussion is Jesus. Jesus, potentially the future representative here of Miami. For the people who don't know you, Jesus, who are you?
Well, Luke, I just want to say thank you for having me on. This is my second time running for Congress here in District 24. I ran 2 years ago in the same district, and here again.
Nice. We definitely have a lot of things to talk about, specifically when it comes to local politics here. Yeah. So we're going to get into all of that, your platform, how you're going to be dealing with situations, because this is kind of an important thing. The area that we're in now is controlled by a Democrat, but Florida surely is becoming more and more red. So there's a lot of hopefuls for you, and we'll get into all of that. Driana is also here. Driana, for the people who don't know you, who are you, and how would you introduce yourself?
Hi, guys. My name is Driana Sixto, and again, thank you for having me on the show. So I would consider myself a very a conservative grassroots activist, and it's what I've been doing for pretty much most of my 20s. They're gone now, by the way. And just making sure that people are mobilized, training people on how to get their neighbors out to vote, to get involved. And personally, Latina, Cuban American, have lived in South Florida my whole life, live in Miami, and this is home for me. So I'm really glad that the studio is kind of close by.
Awesome. Well, it's good to have you. Clint is also here in the house, staying very busy with the ladies.
Yeah, whoa. I mean, he's a real smoke show. Anyways, I was in San Diego for the past 3 days hanging out with my 1-year-old niece. I am fighting off the petri dish that is
California, he got the airborne hepatitis, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just the niece that's around little toddlers and stuff. But anyways, Clint Russell, host of Liberty Lockdown, co-host of the best political show, as well as Tower Gang, which you should never ever watch, at Liberty Lockpod. If you want to follow me and if you subscribe, I'll follow you back. That's a good way to support my work. We got Steph.
San Diego, filled with airborne caca disease from the poop.
Airborne caca, yes.
Airborne caca disease. Seriously, San Diego, some of the dirtiest, filthiest water in the nation. Steph is also in the house. How are you, Steph?
I'm doing great. Ready to push the buttons. We are Change Button Pusher. Ready to go.
All right. Let's just get right into it. As of course, there's a lot of crazy news. I think the craziest story up right next to the kind of elections that just happened in Europe is a lot of Russian military hardware making its way off the coast of Florida, particularly to Cuba, as a lot of people are saying we're facing the 21st century Cuban Missile Crisis as a fleet of Russian warships, including a nuclear submarine, have just arrived to Havana, Cuba. This is the video footage of it just a few hours ago, as of course tensions have been escalating between Russia and the United States, as Jimmy Dore took to Twitter to announce, "Hooray! You're about to get World War III." Now, some people are saying that's a little bit sensationalistic. Some people are saying, well, not really. But in all realities, having more significant Russian military hardware right on America's doorstep isn't really comforting, especially with America and NATO sending a lot of significant military hardware to Russia's border. As, of course, there are now strikes inside of Russia, strikes that Russia is not really happy about, as Russia has kind of announced and declared the United States to be an enemy. This from Vladimir Putin's own press secretary just a few days ago. Now, this wasn't kind of an official, real kind of declaration that we're at war. Was this kind of a misstatement by the Russians? Who knows? But this was Putin's press secretary coming out and saying, yes, America is an enemy. I don't like this. This is not good. I kind of align more with Jimmy Dore's assessment here. What about you guys? What's your take on all of this? Because for me, this is ridiculous. This is too far. This needs to be pulled back immediately. And I think the Biden administration wants it to escalate because everything that they're doing is putting us in a total pathway towards war and not towards peace.
Well, just so everybody knows, these machines of death and destruction are 250 miles away from where we're talking to you from right now. That's how close they are. Now, granted, they do these drills usually on an annual basis, so it's not as if this is a totally anomalous, but when you consider the fact that we've sent hundreds of billions of dollars to the nation that they are at war with, and that nation is now using the weaponry that we've purchased for them with your tax dollars to strike inside of Russia, yeah, of course they're going to describe us as an enemy combatant. Definitionally, we are an enemy combatant to Russia. So that's where we're at right now. And whether or not it actually escalates from here is anybody's guess.
I personally don't think it's going to escalate. Also kind of glad that we're physically in South Florida. I feel like if there's any target, at least here in the United States, I don't think South Florida would be it, just because we're so international that would piss off too many people to drop anything here. But this is only happening because we obviously have people in power that invite this kind of show of aggression because we're not really going to do anything to fight back. That's one theory. The other theory is maybe they are hoping that things escalate, because if we are in the middle of an all-out war, not just, helping Ukraine, helping what's going on in the Middle East, then there is an excuse to distract away from the elections. Oh my gosh, maybe now, because of everything that's going on, we're in the middle of war with Russia. It's got to be mail-in ballots, guys. No, nothing else but mail-in ballots. So I feel like they will move hell and earth to try to distract from the November elections. And maybe this is also a part of what they've been pushing for, to create that kind of animosity with Russia.
I think we also have to understand if things start dropping, I think no one's safe. I don't care where you are,
That's
because
true.
once you have these larger escalations, everything's kind of done. And we're looking at nuclear weapons. These are old, archaic weapons. The Russians are literally bragging about having tsunami weapons. So those larger tsunami weapons that they're threatening to use, and literally created a cartoon visualization of them using it on the United Kingdom, highlights a new level of warfare that we're already kind of seeing in Ukraine with the robots being involved. But there's many different unconventional forms of war that could be waged here. A lot of people are saying that this is just saber rattling, but if there was a larger kind of full-on confrontation, which we're slowly etching closer towards to, no one's safe. A lot of people are saying, well, Tampa probably will get hit because there's a lot of significant military hardware there. But again, nothing is safe. And this is why this is such an important issue to me and why we need to talk about it, why we need to get these videos out there, why we need to have these conversations, because everyone's talking about all these like cultural, social issues. And I'm like, hey, we're literally etching closer towards the end of all Earth. And that's dumb. And for politicians to be so sociopathic to even if it's a small percent, still to play around and say, yeah, we'll just get closer to that. Yeah, we'll just increase the percentage. That right there is pure insanity. That is not just failed leadership, but it shows you just how far gone the U.S. government under the Biden administration absolutely is as they keep pushing for this larger kind of war, which to me is becoming more inevitable the more we go on.
100%, yeah. I can tell you that, well, I don't know for a fact whether or not that it's something that will actually happen, World War III or not. But like you said, and Adriana said, it's definitely something that is looking more and more like it can become a reality. I do think that both sides that are actively engaged in provocatoring and seeing how far they can go and push the limit as to try to cause some kind of an issue or commotion.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm very nervous because you have politicians in America, I'm talking hundreds of them, that are prepared to spend tens of trillions of dollars to address climate change, which might elevate the sea by a few inches, whereas they will all tell you that there is nothing going on here. And it's like, okay, so this threat that's decades in advance, you're prepared to basically bankrupt this country to try and hopefully, maybe, theoretically, prevent it. But
Yeah.
you are totally, just bluffing and blustering when it comes to this issue. I'm sorry, but this is the largest nuclear power. They have hypersonic missiles. Our air defense system will not stop Russia if they strike against us. So,
tsunami weapons, hurricane weapons. There's
Sonar.
unconventional.
Sonar weapons,
There's
too.
attacks
They
on
use-
infrastructure as well. So a lot of times when a lot of these larger battles kind of unfold, they usually unfold through trading routes. But then the first step is to get rid of the infrastructure, get rid of the energy, get rid of the gas pipelines, get rid of the electricity, get rid of the internet. And at any moment, at any time, they could be trying out different things in different scenarios. And I don't mean to be a doomer here, but if you're not preparing, especially if you're a resident of Florida, we're in hurricane season now. You're dumb. You're not paying attention. There's talks about a lot of the funds not being allocated for the hurricanes that are coming this year because the U.S. government just doesn't have any money. But regardless of the larger geopolitical tensions, you should be prepared no matter what, since the world is a lot more unstable than a lot of people make it out to be. It's a lot more fragile than a lot of people make it out to be. And the articles just keep coming in. We got another one here from the Daily Mail that's describing how Putin has a new World War III threat to the West, as now Russia and Belarus are joining forces for tactical nuke exercises. Yes, and again, nuclear weapons, old, archaic, kind of scary technology, but again, old technology compared to, of course, the latest technological advancements, as the latest war probably will be fought with artificial intelligence that now will be in your latest iPhone updates as well. We'll get into that story in a little bit, as of course Elon Musk has some criticism of the latest kind of Apple iPhone updates that he is seeing as a major security flaw for the right reason. Because, again, when we're dealing with a new kind of technocratic day and age, this new type of warfare, not just with robots flying down and exploding, is inevitable and far more disastrous and probably more disastrous than the invention of the machine gun, which, again, shocked a lot of people during World War I. But in reality, the progressions that we made towards military might have been far more significant than that kind of invention that I personally believe.
well, and people, oh, go
What's
ahead.
really scary too is that we have members of Congress here in the U.S. that we know have stocks and investments in the military industrial complex. And they openly then are able to vote for policies and vote for sending money left and right to increase these kinds of issues. So it's scarier that we have people that are our representatives that would personally benefit from escalating issues like these and personally benefit from war. I don't know how that is, how that is normal, because that feels like something that just, I don't know, feels like something out of a movie, like an Insidious movie. But that's the reality. That's the reality.
And a lot of them don't have children, like Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
Well, it's even worse than that, because it's not just that they profit from it, but also most of them wouldn't even be in that seat to begin with if it weren't for the campaign contributions that come from the military-industrial complex. So whether they profit from it or not, they are still walking in lockstep with the demands of the mic. And it's like, well, that's not to the benefit of the American people. I don't know how it could be perceived as otherwise.
I feel that's a very uniting topic across the country, though. The fact that we all want peace. The left, the right. This is the first time that I've ever seen that, because sometimes before I feel like the right has been easily rattled by cries of war because we've got to defend our patriotism and export freedom everywhere. And that is not the case. I feel like, thankfully, because of how easily it is now to access knowledge and other platforms, that we know that war only benefits just a few people at the very top. And so we're a lot more hesitant to just, rally the troops. And that is something that historically the left has always been against because, they're hippies, world peace, whatever. This is something we're finally uniting on. We're realizing that there is no winning in these kinds of confrontations. And maybe that is I feel like that is a very strong driving point for these upcoming elections. And hopefully people realize that, hey, you keep voting Democrat, you keep voting for Biden, guess what? You might get drafted. So think through before going to the polls next November.
Yeah, well, the politicians are winning. The war machine is winning. The people of Ukraine, the people of Russia are losing. They're literally losing their lives because of this larger gambit that we're all involved in, that we're financing and we're paying for.
The American people are losing too, though. I mean, the financial suffering that we've been dealing with is in part because of the military-industrial complex. Yes, the lockdowns and the $7 trillion that was spent in 2020, the $5 trillion or so that was thrown down the drain in 2021, like that is all added to the inflationary pressure. But people overlook the fact that the reason that the right wing is so hesitant about war is because they realize that the war on terror was such an utter disaster, that there was $9 trillion that was lit on fire. But really, it wasn't lit on fire. What it was really doing was creating additional inflation, which we are languishing under.
It was
today.
redistributed to the ruling class. Right. And the Republicans found out, we created all these emergency powers and all these emergency laws, which they're getting spanked with right now by the Democrats. The own laws that they wrote, the own laws that they said you have to vote for your safety and security, that they're literally using right now on other fellow Republicans and putting them in jail because of it, spying on them and destroying their civil liberties in the process.
Yeah, I just want people to realize when they go to the grocery store and you can't afford things, like all of this stuff has consequences. Yes, maybe it's not, and it's certainly not as dire as it has been for the Ukrainian people or the people of Gaza or the Russian troops either. But it's still, there is a cost that is borne by the American people, and I think oftentimes we overlook that. We try and portray it as if, well, these wars are happening 5,000-6,000 miles away. How is this actually impacting us? Yes, it is impacting us.
It's not just us. It's global trade. It's also energy. It's also wheat. It's also the poorest places in the world that used to rely on the breadbasket of Europe, that was Ukraine, for a lot of their resources, for a lot of the cheap food out there, that no longer are getting it. The Germans, who are shooting themselves in the foot by destroying their nuclear reactors, who had their pipeline with Russia literally destroyed. They are the ones losing out. The energy costs going up, predominantly affecting the poorest people in this world. They're the ones paying the cost, the burden for this insanity. Exactly, the Nord Stream pipeline that was blown up by, most likely, Western forces that, of course, sabotaged Germany in an incredible way. And it could be one reason why Germany now has kind of voted for the right-wing party in recent local elections that we're going to be talking about here in a little bit. I have another article here pulled up that is just as troubling as the kind of other ones that we were just showing you, as Sky News is reporting that Ukrainian warplanes just fired weapons at targets inside of Russia for the first time. The article reads, while damage assessment is still occurring, it is confirmed as a direct hit, a Ukrainian military source tells Sky News, as of course these fighter jets now going into Russian territory and striking warplanes deep inside of Russia, as highlighted by these satellite pictures, shows some very sophisticated advanced military hardware being destroyed by the Ukrainians far in Russian territory, as we're also finding out that Volodymyr Zelensky now is demanding more U.S. fighter jets so he could take on Russia inside of Russian territory, as there's other reports that I haven't been able to independently verify yet myself, that a lot of these Ukrainian F-16s are hiding in EU countries. Does that mean that they are fair game for Russians to go attack their particular airfields, as we got other reports a couple days ago of the Russians bombing the specific F-16 airfields inside of Ukraine, preventing the F-16s from taking off inside of that country? Are these fighter jets taking off in European countries, and will that make them fair game for Russians to target other European NATO countries? That's a question. That's another escalation. That's another kind of very serious problem that the world will face, especially when it comes to dealing with this conflict and more advanced Russian military hardware just being taken out. Again, these are very dangerous games that could escalate. And it could just be a blink of an eye. It could be also an accident. But it looks like a lot of deliberate actions are being made to go after the Russian war machine. The Russian war machine that, of course, is going to maybe be utilizing more advanced weaponry, potentially on NATO countries because of this advancement. This is not good.
I was hanging out with my family all weekend in San Diego, and my parents were basically, trying to talk me off the ledge. And I tried to explain to them, it's not that I believe that anybody wants there to be World War III or that they're actually going to attempt to make that happen. It's that if NATO troops end up in the ground in Ukraine, well, then Russia, perceiving that to be existential, would require them to fire a warning shot, which would be a low-level tactical, nuclear weapon into Ukraine of some variety. So that's how we escalate from here. So I'm not saying it's likely, but the chances are definitely real.
But if the Russians lose a significant portion of their advanced military hardware, they could say, "Oh, we have nukes left. We don't have the fighter jets left." So, and then the United States, according to some sources, have threatened to wipe out all Russian positions inside of Ukraine if there are the use of tactical weapons and nukes inside of Ukraine by Russia.
I personally believe that if there is going to be any kind of attack on either side, it's just going to be cyber warfare. And if you think about it, it would do the most damage just because of the amounts of lives lost, with transportation going down, with people not being able to access food. Just that would be the absolute worst, and also the easiest to do versus having to fire a single strike. Like, that is what I'm personally worried about. I don't think they would try to do the, what do you call it? The Vax 2.0 or, the last same thing that we saw in 2020, because that would be too obvious. But I do feel that they're going to use cyber attacks and natural disasters. We haven't talked too much about that one, but recently they were talking about how we have the most historical activity that we have seen in the Atlantic, that it has reached record levels of warming, and that we should prepare for catastrophic hurricanes this season way ahead of time. And I feel like that is another way that we might be distracted for the upcoming elections. I feel like everything right now, I know it sounds very conspiracy theorist, but I feel like everything is geared towards preventing Donald Trump winning in November and Republicans winning in November, and they'll move the quite literal heavens to do that. We already know that there is that we are capable of controlling the weather, of making it a sunnier day, of making it a rainier day. In fact, if you would like to pay for your wedding outside to be sunny that day, you can do so. And private companies have the ability to do so, to guarantee a cloud-free day. So cloud seeding is a thing, and I feel like we're going to get all of these distractions to make it a lot harder for people to exercise the right to vote in November, and that's why that should be our primary focus, come hell or high water, that we do whatever we can to get out there and to get our neighbors out there to vote.
No, they are talking about some significant kind of hurricanes coming this year, and weather weapons are real, and they're real on a local level. The Chinese admit that they literally used it for their Olympics. What kind of other ways are they being used in a weaponized way? There's also talks about earthquake weapons, hurricane weapons. I think all of those are legitimate threats. Tsunami weapons, like we talked about a little bit, that the Russians knowingly have the capabilities of spurring on. Those are real legitimate kind of threats, and I think far more dangerous than even just nuclear weapons in some instances.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that the only real two possibilities of an issue happening would probably be obviously nuclear war. There's talk a lot of another pandemic like the bird flu. There's lots of articles, livestock that's being attacked all over the country. Those are definitely two of my personal concerns.
Yeah, over the next 6 months, I think those are significant concerns. I think that the bird flu issue probably won't take off just because we just went through such a similar scenario, and I find it very hard to believe that the American people would acquiesce to those demands again so soon, especially after we just realized the deception that we lived through. Like, that's very hard for me to imagine. What's much more concerning to me is just the escalatory trap. As I said before, it's not that I think either side. In fact, I'm very confident in particular that Putin does not want to escalate with NATO. He's been very clear. What's already transpired, though, has crossed his red line so many times, and they just continue to cross it with reckless abandon. They seem to have absolutely no respect for him. They seem to believe that he will never actually attack NATO troops, and it's like, well, he's now signaling to you that he intends to, that he is actually going to fire on NATO troops inside of Ukraine if he sees them essentially bringing in munitions that are being used to strike Russia proper. I can't blame him, though. We would never permit something like that to happen to America, and for us to expect him to permit that is just, laughably naive.
Yeah. I think economic war is another kind of factor here that I think a lot of people should look into, as of course Russia is also, according to Yahoo Finance, doubling down on its de-dollarization efforts as Putin is calling to, quote, reduce use of toxic currency. Now you look at this and what's happening with BRICS nations, with Turkey saying that they want to be a part of BRICS, with their foreign minister meeting recently in Russia, with them kind of aligning closer and closer to China, Turkey being a major NATO country and also a major trade partner to Europe, highlighting a larger shift towards the East rather than the West, also highlights some larger kind of financial issues for the U.S. petrodollar that is backed by a lot of people using them. Now, if less and less countries use them, if there's a bigger alliance between China, India, Russia, Iran, Turkey, that shifts towards larger financial problems. And if we think that there's not an economic war going on right now, we're fooling ourselves, because there is, and the war right now is taking place between the East and the West, and it's fought in many different facets. There's a proxy war. There's actually a few of them developing in different regions that the Russians now hope to kind of play off, as the United States has been playing off against different factions against the Russians. But the larger financial consequences are pretty real, and I think the United States doesn't hold a lot of the cards here, as we are $34 trillion in debt.
Almost 35. Give it a couple weeks. I would just add, too, that people should remember, one, Turkey is a NATO member. Two, they perceive themselves, and many in the Muslim world perceive themselves to be essentially like the leaders of the Muslim world or the Arab world. And if they turn towards China, that means that they're turning away from NATO. That also means that they're turning away from Israel, which is yet another flashpoint for a potential world war. So, whether that's the moral decision to make or not, I'll set that aside and just say, like, practically speaking, the West ought to be very concerned about Turkey aligning itself with the BRICS.
I think really important, guys. If Trump himself only gets back in office in November, this is all not just magically going away. It's very easy for us to lose the House of Representatives and the Senate, and for him to be handicapped and just have his arms behind his back for the next 4 years if we don't do something. And that's really what this is about. That's the only thing that we can do in a peaceful manner, right? Like, just if we don't want all out craziness to break out here, and I don't think any of us here do, then the only thing you can do is make sure that you do your absolute best to make sure all Republicans win down the ballot, not just, fill in that first bubble for Trump. He's not he's not a magician. He's not the one solution to everything. That's why, Jesus over here is running for Congress in a place that has been historically Democrat for so many years, of plus D24 district, but somebody's got to do it, and absolutely nothing is impossible, right? And
Absolutely.
if there was ever a year that I think the other side is more willing to listen to our ideas and work together, so we, I don't know, just not die and go to World War III in November, this would be it. So.
Well, question for you, Jesus, because
Yeah.
I agree with the concerns and the fact that Trump's obviously not going to be able to fix this all on his own. Not that I actually have real assurances that he would actually do so, but I hope so. My concern is really about the rhinos in Congress, that so many of them are basically in lockstep with the military-industrial complex.
Right.
You've already ran for Congress. I'm curious, did you encounter any opportunities to sell out to the donor class? Like, what was your experience?
Personally, so far, I haven't had anybody come up to me to try and, buy me or offer, any gifts or anything like that. I hope that they never do, because if they do, it's not going to be, it's definitely not going to be a positive experience for that person.
Well, I hope it does happen, just so you can record it and then tell us about it, because I would like to know how it works.
No, what has changed actually since the last time you ran and now is that there is new leadership for the Republican Party. Absolutely. What hasn't changed is the fact that they will not give resources to the races that are extremely difficult to win, right? So they only put in resources to those districts that might be flippable. And this has historically been seen as just a lost cause. And I don't think such thing exists.
That is true.
Oh.
I can tell you that District 24 has been a Democrat-controlled district now for the last 13 years. Mm-hmm. Your current Congresswoman, Federica Wilson, she's 81 years old. She's a career politician. She's a radical leftist, like the worst possible person you can possibly imagine. That's the person that's
That's who you're running against.
That's yeah. That's
Well,
exactly how I'm
Well, then
running
you better
against.
win, brother.
I mean,
Yeah.
victory's it's a non-negotiable. At least that's how I see it.
Yeah. Are you running unopposed in the GOP primary?
I do have a person that's primarying me. Her name is Patricia Gonzalez. I've never met her, never had a conversation with her. But you can do like a quick Google search and you'll find
Yeah,
her.
no, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, how would you vote differently than the current Republican Party right now if you were in Congress? Because it seems like a lot of them are passing these larger kind of defense bills, omnibus bills. Would you be different than the kind of Republicans that have failed us?
I would not support any money to, for example, like any bills for any billions of dollars that we would be sending to Ukraine. I would be totally opposed to that.
Okay.
I would not be sending billions and billions and just feeding the war machine.
Well, what about the other proxy wars we're in? Because we just sent, I think it was $12 billion to Taiwan, which is to fight China, and then you also have
That country in the Middle East.
yes, the other one that I'm not allowed to say here. But it's $100 billion that just got passed 60 days ago. That's going to 3 proxy wars. You singled out Ukraine, which I respect, but there's 2 others.
I mean, the quickest way to end war is cut off the money. Honestly,
I agree.
That's really it. I mean, that's
So would you?
absolutely.
All right, that's right answer.
There's very few Republicans in Congress that truly have what our values should be, which is being fiscally conservative and not selling out to outside interests. They call themselves the Liberty Caucus, and it's just a handful of freaking people, right?
Yep.
It's just a handful of people that in Congress truly, I feel, represent our values. And slowly but surely, we have to work within the two-party system to make sure that, at the very least, our party is represented by people who have our values, because I feel like the left is kind of a lost cause. If anything,
Agreed.
we've had a lot of people on the left, people that have been elected officials that were Democrat, that have switched over to being Republican while they've been in office. That has been like kind of a new thing, but it's definitely been a trend. So I feel like the Democrat Party is beyond saving right now. What we have to work with is our own party, right? We've got to save the GOP so we can save America and make sure that we elect politicians that reflect those values. So
Yeah, a vote for Democrats is a vote for World War III.
Yeah.
But the Republicans keep promising, a totally different situation. They promise to be anti-war. It's going to be a very difficult situation for Donald Trump, as of course he's not only inheriting like destroyed relations with Russia, who's really not happy with the United States. He's facing a proxy war. He's facing pressures from many different lobbies. He's facing pressures from Zelensky. He's facing pressures from his own members of Congress that are literally trying to preemptively pass laws right now that would stop him from stopping these larger proxy wars. Zelensky just came out a few days ago and said Trump is going to be a loser if he ends this war. And I'm like, wait, what? Are you kidding me? Peace here is what everyone wants, and clearly Trump is one of the few people that is saying that he's going to bring that to us. I just want to know how. I know he's talking about allowing Ukraine to concede some of the land here, and I guess they have to do that. But the decisions that he's going to have to make are going to be extremely tough, and they're in the face of a lot of very serious lobbyists that want this war to continue, and they're doing everything in their power to continue them. So how do you see this kind of path moving forward? Because it doesn't seem like it's going to be kind of one and done. It seems like there's going to be a lot of uphill battles for Donald Trump if he's going to make good on his promises.
I've got an answer for you. You won't like it. As you said, Trump has been very good about the war in Ukraine in terms of rhetoric and how he wants to make it stop. The way he makes it stop is that he also said over the past week that Israel needs to finish it, and they need to finish it fast. And I think that's where the military-industrial complex will get fed, is that he will continue to fund that side while promising to veto Ukraine war funding, which will force them to the negotiating table. That's my expectation. Just being realistic, not saying it's ideal.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see, because he is saying, and he did talk to Khabib Nurmagomedov. I'm saying his name totally wrong. That cyborg,
Nurmagomedov.
No, Nurmagomedov. We're very close to saying something bannable here, which you don't want to say here. Family-friendly show here for the first hour. Then we'll go to another platform and totally let loose. But he had a conversation saying that he's going to be the one that ends this war in the Middle East. And I'll be honest, it's not going to be easy for him to do. But, I think a clear, more declarative statement would be needed here to understand how.
I think he needs to surround himself with the right people. I know it's easier said than done, but he's just one person. He can't be on all fronts at all times with all the information possible. I think that he was not surrounded by the right people in his last term because, well, it was his first time around realizing just how deep the rabbit hole goes, right? And I think now he finally understands it and is going to bring in a lot more people with a lot more experience to help him out with his second term. And not just that, I mean, personally, if I were Trump and I was reelected back in office and I was trying to remend those relationships that have been destroyed over the last 4 years, I mean, all I could say is, wasn't me, like it wasn't me. Sorry. It was dealing with like trying to avoid being put into jail these last few years. Thank God I'm here now. And the only thing we could do is move forward from this because we're all kind of in a losing position if we don't. And so
we're all going to be in the gulags if we don't. I mean, you had the FBI at your door, which is crazy.
Just a few months after day 6, which I wasn't even at. I wasn't in DC. I was watching it happen live on my TV. and I had officers come in and ask whether I was, and was showing pictures, old pictures posted from a previous trip to DC, and were asking, you guys weren't there. We saw it because those pictures were reposted on January 6th. It's like all they had to do was keep scrolling down and they would have seen the original post date. So very competitive agency that we've got there, but very competent, agency that we've got there. But yeah, and not just that, after that, definitely have had a target on my back. I probably still do. I'm probably still on lists. You know, even though I have clear, I still have to randomly be checked for my ID at the airport really often. They can little by little make your life a lot more difficult to the point where it kind of drives you mad, and there's nothing you can really do about it. They have zero accountability, and that is one agency that I think I don't even know how it's possible, how it would be possible to reform it. I think it's just got to be nixed because it's so obvious it's working against the interest of the American people, as they see us as their enemies, even though we're just common like Joe Blows. They see us as enemies, and instead of putting their resources towards greater things, towards fighting against, you know, child trafficking rings here in the US or whatever else, they've just put their targets on the backs of, for example, 19-year-old girls that happened to be at the Capitol that day that were let in by Capitol Police, which we have seen through the freaking videotapes what actually happened, and are trying to ruin the lives of people like that. Or Granny that was strolling through the Capitol. You know, like that is absolutely ridiculous. It's something that we see in third world countries, and we thought that it wasn't possible to happen here, but clearly it is. And it sucks because, you know, you're doomed to repeat history if you don't know about it. Cubans, particularly, we have a very recent history and knowledge with dictatorships, with these kinds of regimes. Venezuelans too, lots of people in Central America as well. And so we, you know, scream from the top of our lungs, you're not safe. I know, like, the American dream seemed like very accessible and things seemed normal about like maybe 5 decades ago, but that is not the case. And we just need to preserve this country for at least one more generation. Like, I think that's our goal. Preserve it for just one more generation.
Yeah. As a Polish person, I definitely resonate and get along with a lot of the Cubans here because we have the same kind of struggles and same kind of big government we had to deal with. That wasn't nice. That was oppressive. That literally put people in jail because of their political thoughts and expressions. And that's not a place that I want to live in America. That does that, and that's what we're slowly doing. And I think they probably knew you weren't there, but I think they wanted to set up a chilling effect because a lot of the times they kind of rule in fear. They control people by scaring the crap out of them, and it's their main kind of mechanism of control because they understand we can't really control everyone, but if we make them afraid, we can sort of set up this chilling effect that allows the general population to move in our kind of general vicinity. Steph, we have some super chats. Could you please read them off of the screen, starting from top to bottom, please?
We have Andrew Jacobs saying, please book Josh Smith running for Senate in Iowa.
I don't know who Josh Smith is, but we'll look into
buddy.
him. He's your buddy. Let's get him on the show. Let's get him here in Miami. We have a guest room. So
He lives in Iowa, so whenever he's out here, or Idaho, I don't know, one of those
Iowa.
I's.
Iowa.
He lives in
Iowa, yeah. Not a fun place. Me and Clinton were in Iowa, and we were like, what are we doing here? This is so dumb. Go ahead.
No. I mean, yeah, Josh, you have an open invite, buddy. Whenever you're in Miami.
All right. We got Red Viking saying Steph should be on the couch enjoying a bone.
You perverts, control yourselves. And I think they're making a comment towards Atlas. I got Atlas a cow bone that she's really enjoying.
She's loving it.
Okay.
We have Daniel Bennett saying all wars are banker wars. BIS Project Enbridge is currently being tested in Saudi Arabia as part of testing. Petrodollar may have died on the 9th.
Has the petrodollar down on the night? I haven't heard anything about this, but I don't know about you guys.
I don't know what this Bank of International Settlement deal he's talking about is. I'll have to research it.
But anyway, let's continue on with the other kind of major developments happening around the world. As of course, there was recently elections in Europe, as CNBC News is reporting that there was a major right-wing surge in EU Parliament that, quote, could have implications from Europe and beyond. Their key points for this article is that a more polarized parliament could make it difficult to pass EU legislation on issues ranging from climate and immigration to industrial strategy and defense. Yes, of course, the populist faction, not the crazy woke leftist faction, is representing a larger rebuke to the current status quo. To me, a lot of news organizations are saying far right, when in reality, when you're in Europe, a lot of these people aren't really far right. They're kind of a little bit left of center, especially when you travel there, when you spend some time there. And the shift, to me, is good, especially for Poland, that just a couple months ago overwhelmingly voted in for a kind of more left-leaning government. And with that comes a lot of very significant problems and ramifications for the local populations there. What do you guys make of these latest election results? Is, of course, it looks like Germany and France represented the largest kind of political shift here that is bending towards more populist ideas and more away from these kind of leftist, woke, democratic, liberal policies that really represent the corporatist policies out there.
Freedom is popular, man. Freedom is popular. You can clearly see that what is happening in Europe is a precursor to what's going to happen here in November.
I think that's a distinct possibility, but I think that the real reason that this is happening, to answer you directly, Luke, is that the immigration, they've had very, very porous borders for decades now. The UN, along with the EU, has been not just permitting, but also funding major aspects of this. So I think that the domestic population has had enough. You're having a major populist, kind of nativistic, right-wing leaning uprising, but it's totally natural. It's the same thing that's happening in America. You open up the borders, people all of a sudden go from like, oh, I don't mind immigrants. Immigrants make America great, to like, oh, 8 million in 2 years. Like, yeah, that's a problem. Like, we can't handle that. So that's where we're at.
The European left are pretty much like full-blown communists. The right wing, the far right, they're actually kind of like moderate liberals comparatively to American politics here, especially when it comes to, the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, which are pretty much non-existent in Europe, where you literally go to jail for not regurgitating the government's official lines on historical events, or questioning, powers, or questioning government in a way where the government doesn't like it. They literally put people in jail for that. You try to homeschool your children in Germany, jail automatically. You don't go along with the kind of mandatory extortionist medical procedures, jail, which is just absolutely crazy. A lot of people have said Europe is gone. Is it with these election results? I kind of want to leave the question to you guys.
Well, just a reminder too. It's just 15 years ago, general Democrat policy was not open borders. Like, that's a total shift. So your point about them basically becoming communists, which a major tenet of communism is to have open borders. Yeah.
And the reason for it is because now the Democrats realize that their own supporters, especially, for example, large minority communities, the African-American community in this country, for the first time in history, the polls are showing that they are leaning right in levels never seen before. And I think the number one issue towards that community is the fact that they are seeing this unmitigated immigration into this country. And not just that, but the fact that once you cross into this country illegally, you're welcomed with free housing, free healthcare, free food, things that have never been offered, even as a security net, as a safety net with welfare programs, to the people here. So the most impoverished part of Americans, a lot of minority Americans are seeing, hey, the Democrat Party clearly no longer is tending to us or needs us or cares about the poor people. they are importing new voters because they have completely depleted our pockets. I mean, we're hurting. We're probably not going to vote for them again because they have turned things upside down within the matter of 4 years. So who in their right mind would actually vote Democrat now? Well, you need to replace the population with foreigners. And I think that that's what they're doing. And that, I think, is also what's going to be a crucial element in the election for this district, which we're currently physically in, District 24, which has a really high population of African Americans, of Hispanics. Again, before it was thought non-winnable because of just past elections, but I think this will be the game changer.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised at this kind of election cycle. These elections in Europe do highlight, I think, a larger shift. There's a couple videos of European liberals just freaking out and crying. I should have made a compilation of it, and you could see them kind of just losing their ish in response to this. But it does seem, and I'm asking the YouTube chat, is Europe lost? So people could actually vote right now and decide if Europe is lost or not. I think people are voting yes. I haven't traveled to Europe in a long time. I used to do it every year, but with just how draconian, just how insane it's becoming there, the less I want to be there. I don't want to live there. I don't want to reside there. You can't defend yourself. You have crime that's going up dramatically, and you have politicians that are literally hyper-focused on their political opponents, punishing them, going after them, while taking away their rights to defense. And it's a place where if you're going to be at, you're really kind of vulnerable. So these kind of larger shifts, these kind of larger political changes are fascinating to me, because a lot of people are saying, well, it's a little too late here. As of course, this little political victory doesn't signify anything major, and Europe is still lost here. As some people are saying, no. We still have a chance. We still have a way of saving Europe. But with the larger kind of demographic changes that have happened there, and with people becoming citizens of Europe, I do see the same kind of game being played here in the United States. Now, will the right kind of wake up? Will the populations wake up and vote against this and prevent the larger takeover? Well, it's an interesting gambit, because to me, it could go either way. I think absolutely the Democrats and the liberals have far more power institutionally, and I think that they're able to kind of carry out their plans a lot more successfully than the right wing that essentially has been kind of acting like a defenseless turtle on their backs, shuffling around with very little kind of action other than small kind of representative things that don't really amount to anything. But is that me just being too pessimistic?
Well, I can tell you, as far as demographics in District 24, you definitely have a large population of blacks, a large population of Hispanics, which have turned totally and completely, or in the process of turning, to conservative values. I can tell you that Federica Wilson, for example, she 100% supports the importing of all these illegals, these people coming in. She literally supports illegals first and puts Americans last. I mean, it's cut clear and dry. It's very simple, direct. And that's the same thing with any Democrat, I think, today in the country, where they have completely neglected their own constituents. And like Driana was explaining, Democrats have shifted away from focusing on taking care of their own constituents, and they're replacing those constituents with new constituents, which are all the illegals that are coming into the country, giving them all of these incentives, all these handouts, giving them anything and everything for free, basically.
Yeah, I think for sure historically, Republicans have just laid there and taken it. And,
they're great at that. They get that done a lot.
Yeah, and just politics runs in my veins, I guess, because of my background, and that was one of the things that really affected me the most, especially after 2020. seeing that after the election results there and the inconsistencies, we shall say, happened, that nothing was done about it by the party. In fact, that there was leadership in the party that just told people like myself that I am crazy for even talking about those inconsistencies, that we're just going to try harder next time, but nothing's actually going to change. And I was a conspiracy theorist for pointing out those, those little weird things that happened back then. And I was so mad I deregistered for the first time in my whole life. I had been registered Republican. I re-registered within the year because, I got over it and realized if you want to win, you've got to play within the game. But absolutely, I feel like historically the right has not been proactive. It has never been on the attack. We've always just played defense. And I think that we've got a new generation of Republicans that are no longer going to do that. I think that we've got a younger generation too of new Republicans that truly stand up for what conservative values are supposed to be in the first place, and are trying to take everything back, even though it's really hard to do because, hey, we don't have the resources, right? We haven't been in office for decades now. Selling out our constituents' interests to get a payoff, right? Okay. So, but we're still doing it, right? Like Jesus is still doing it, and a lot of new candidates nationwide are trying.
Yeah, those conspiracy theorists seem to be getting a lot of things right.
Yeah.
It's almost as if they're like fortune tellers, and they could read the news headlines months in advance, as if they're like paying attention and could predict events as they happen. As Justin Trudeau isn't really happy with the latest elections in Europe, as he just recently released this statement.
Right-wing forces in just about every democracy that we've seen. And it is of concern to see political parties choosing to instrumentalize anger, fear, division, anxiety. My approach has always been to respond to it, to understand it, and to look to solve it, to roll up our sleeves, work hard, and with ambition for this country and for our future. And I continue to be convinced that Canadians are thoughtful about the challenges we're facing and ready to see them solved, rather than just allow themselves to be have their anger amplified without any solutions offered.
What a wet tampon. As of course, there's also going to be snap elections happening in France that soon might kick out Emmanuel Macron from the seat of power there, which could totally geopolitically change the situation in Russia. What will happen during these snap elections where Marie Le Pen could actually win? Well, time will only tell, and I think this will be a major kind of trajectory shift, if successful, for a larger renaissance, a larger change in Europe that could potentially happen and change things very dramatically. Where do you think things will go from here? Well, our chat room seems to think Europe is lost, as 67% of the voters on our YouTube chat said, yep, Europe is screwed. What do you think? Vote right now, and of course, let your opinion be heard. As soon now, we will be making our way over towards a totally different platform where we will soon be able to say what we want without any fear or repercussion or censorship. As of course, we will be going over towards a website that you guys will have to find us on that we can't talk about. That again, I don't know how else we could say this, but before we move over there, we wanted to tell you about Biltong, an amazing, incredible product that I really like, that I use. This is a small, family-friendly snack, low in carbs, packed with protein, making Biltong the ultimate health snack. Biltong is a great source of iron and also serves as a source of several other essential nutrients, including magnesium, potassium, and B vitamins, which translates into exceptional gains in all aspects of life. If you follow any high-protein, meat-based diet, Biltong should be an essential part of your diet. We have a new promo code, WRC10, if you purchase more than, I think, $45 $5, you get 10% off of the actual product. I think promo code WRC still works. This is great. I know Steph is getting into more kind of high protein diets herself. I like high protein diets. I think they're great. They're not always right for everyone, but this product absolutely is legitimate. They have a bunch of different tastes. This is Angus Perry, and this is something that we pay Clint exclusively in that he loves himself.
I do. It's I got the Wagyu Ghost, which is like obscenely hot, so be careful with that one. I grew up in San Diego, and I'm saying this so you know it's spicy. Yeah, Biltong, get some. It's the best.
WRC 10. Steph, you had something to say?
Yeah, it's delicious. I ate like half a bag today.
It's really good. Really, really like this company. And again, support them because they support us. But more importantly, their product is legitimate. Like I growing up in Poland, we have a lot of cold cuts. We have a lot of meat. This kind of brings me back to those old kind of countryside, nice dinners and lunches that I had with my family member. Really good stuff, and it's stuff that you can't get at the grocery store. You could only get it on landofbiltong.com. Promo code WRC10, and you get 10% off of your purchases. Check them out. We're going to put them in the comment section, so you could also click in the comment section and then just go check out a lot of their products. They also have teas, and they're really a great company. They send me a package once a week, which we greatly appreciate. We're greatly happy that they do. So definitely go check them out. Shouts out to Land of Biltong. Great stuff, great products, and it's great being able to work with companies like that. Before we transition over towards a free speech platform, Jesus, where can people find out more information about you?
Well, you can visit my website, which is www.jesus, like Jesus, JESUS, G Navarro, NAVARRO.com. Or you can visit me on social media, on Instagram or X, formerly known as Twitter, which my handle there is Jesus_G_Navarro. And that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Driana, where can people find out more information about you?
Hi, guys. So I'm definitely on X, formerly known as Twitter, and you can just look up my name, Driana Sixto, DRIENA There's very few Drianas, and there's no other Driana Sixto worldwide so far. Same thing on Instagram. Look me up at Driana Sixto, and I'll see you guys there.
There's only one Clint Russell, but there's many partners to Clint Russell.
That's right. Hundreds, thousands even. At Liberty Lockbot on X. I'm very sleepy and sick, but I'm going to recover, and I will be back with a vengeance tomorrow. If you want to support me for being such a trooper, you should subscribe on X at Liberty Lock Pod. You should subscribe on YouTube to Liberty Lockdown. And you should pick up your effing phone and search for podcasts, however you listen to them. Search for The Best Political Show and Liberty Lockdown. Subscribe to both so that you never miss an episode. I love you, MFers. We'll see you on the other side.
Have more biltong. It'll make you feel better.
That's right.
Yeah, biltong is delicious, especially because it has very low sugar. So if you're trying to like get some gains, some muscles, and you don't want any fat, you can get that and eat it. That's what I've been doing. I lost 5 pounds in a week or something. I'm really happy about it. And I'm working out, playing tennis. So
I had to see photos of it. It was not cool.
Shh.
They're talking about her poop.
We're over that, okay? We
talking
can
about her
only do
poop.
that when Ian's in town.
Okay, sorry.
That's it.
Yeah, Ian loves to show pictures of his.
He likes
Anyway.
cleansing and detoxing.
Sign up to lookunfiltered.com. Nature hike next week in New Hampshire. It's going to be fun. It's one of the most beautiful places to do a hike in, and I know some great secret spots. Be a part of that nature hike. Sign up to lookunfiltered.com. We're going to be
what day is
going.
the hike?
I haven't decided yet because we're still booking guests. So we're going to have Spike Cohan, Chris Martinson, what's his name? I can't believe I forgot his name. Lily Tang is also going to be there. Jeremy Kaufman and that other guy that we had on the show here before. I can't believe I forgot his name. He's also in New Hampshire at PorkFest all the time. I forgot his name. I'm sorry. We're going to release a full list of names. We got a lot of great people coming in studio. Rashad Evans is going to be coming in studio, joining us soon as well as Milo Yiannopoulos. Tomorrow we have Viva Frey on with the Lectern guy, also 6 p.m. Eastern, so stay tuned.